You get a headache, you take a pill, you drink some water, you move on. It takes about a minute and you barely think about it. Now imagine that same headache 50,000 years ago. No pill, no pharmacy, no doctor, no idea what is even causing the pain. Just you, the pounding in your skull, and a group of people around you who are just as confused as you are. For almost all of human history, there was no real medicine. And yet, somehow, humans survived long enough to build hospitals, cure diseases, and complain about them both online. So how did they actually do it? Here's the thing nobody tells you about ancient humans. They were not just stumbling around, hoping to survive. Most people picture early humans as helpless when they got sick, lying in a cave, waiting to either get better or die. That picture is wrong. The truth is stranger and far more impressive. Ancient humans were watching, testing, and slowly figuring out real medicine, thousands of years before anyone could write a single word. And some of what they discovered is still sitting in your medicine cabinet right now. Once you see how they did it, you will never look at a simple pill the same way again. Here's what the evidence actually shows. Let's go all the way back. Around 2 million years ago, our earliest ancestors handled sickness the same way most animals do. Rest, keep still, avoid food, stay warm. Watch a dog after it gets hurt and you are basically watching the same instincts that go back millions of years. But at some point, humans started doing something animals almost never do. They started using plants on purpose to feel better. We know this is possible because the chimpanzees already do it. Chimpanzees, when they get sick, will go out of their way to eat certain plants they normally avoid, plants that clearly taste bad to them. Some rough leaves they swallow actually scrape parasites out of their gut. Some bitter plants contain natural chemicals that fight the exact parasites, making them sick. They are not doing it for the flavor, they are doing it because it works, and somehow they learned that. If chimps can do this, early humans almost certainly could too. And humans had one huge advantage. We can share what we learn. We can teach it to the next person and the next generation. That changes everything. An animal that eats a plant and feels better just has a lucky habit. A human who eats a plant, feels better, and then tells everyone else has started something bigger. One good discovery, shared at the right time, could save many lives over the years. Then, those people teach the next generation and on until a whole body of knowledge exists that no single person invented but everyone benefits from. That, quietly, is where medicine really began. Now brace yourself because what comes next is one of the most amazing discoveries in all of archaeology. In 2023, researchers in a cave in Borneo found a skeleton about 31,000 years old. Part of its left leg was missing, not lost over time. It had been cut off on purpose in a surgery, and the bone had healed and grown around the wound. That means the person did not die, they survived having part of their leg removed 31,000 years ago in the Stone Age with stone tools and lived for years afterward. Think about that. Someone that long ago looked at a badly damaged leg and decided it needed to come off. Then they did it, and the patient lived. And this was not a one-time thing. All over the world, scientists have found ancient skulls with neat, carefully made holes in them, not from fighting, from a kind of surgery where a piece of the skull was removed, probably to relieve pressure or treat head injuries. And here is the wild part. Many of these patients survived because we can see the bone growing back around the holes. People were doing a form of brain surgery in the Stone Age, and many of them were fine afterward. How did they know how to do this? Honestly, we do not fully know. What we do know is that they figured it out through watching, trying, and remembering over a very long time, even though many of the early attempts surely ended badly. There were no rules, no training schools, just someone willing to try, someone desperate enough to let them, and the slow, hard collection of knowledge about what worked and what did not. Even earlier than that, Neanderthals, who were not even fully modern humans, were already using plants as medicine. At one cave in Iraq, scientists found traces of medicinal plants near a Neanderthal burial from 60,000 years ago. At other sites, they found plant remains stuck in ancient hardened plaque on Neanderthal teeth, plants still used in traditional medicine today. By the time we reach ancient Egypt, the knowledge was huge. One famous Egyptian medical document, written around 3,500 years ago, but based on much older knowledge, lists over 700 remedies using hundreds of plants and other ingredients. It describes treatments for infections, stomach problems, skin conditions, eye diseases, and more. And some of these treatments genuinely worked. The Egyptians used honey on wounds constantly. We now know honey actually kills bacteria because of how it is made. They did not understand why. They just noticed that wounds treated with honey healed better. They also used a lot of garlic, which really does fight bacteria and fungus. When ancient healers gave garlic for infections, they were accidentally doing the right thing. They used willow bark for pain, aloe for burns, and the opium poppy for pain relief, which works because of built-in pain receptors in our brains that nobody would discover for thousands more years. These were not lucky guesses. They were thousands of years of careful watching. Nobody knew why these things worked. They only knew that they did, and that knowledge was treated as precious, written down, and passed on. Let me throw something at you that might sound wild. Here's the strange part. For almost all of human history, nobody knew what actually caused disease. The idea that tiny living things, germs, cause infection was not proven until the 1860s. Before that, nobody on Earth understood it. Not a single person. So every medical tradition before then was working without the most important fact of all. They did not know about bacteria. They did not know about viruses. They did not know that a wound got infected because tiny organisms were growing inside it. Instead, they had their own explanations. The Greeks believed sickness came from 4 fluids in the body being out of balance. This is why draining blood from sick people stayed common for over 2,000 years and probably killed more people than it ever helped. Other cultures had their own ideas about energy or forces flowing through the body. None of these ideas were correct. And yet, here is the fascinating part. Some of their treatments worked anyway, because ancient healers watched results before they trusted theories. They tried things, kept what worked, and dropped what did not. The explanation might be completely wrong, but sometimes the treatment landed on something real by pure accident. Here's the best example. Ancient Egyptians sometimes put mold on infected wounds. Certain molds produce penicillin, the basis of real antibiotics. So ancient healers were using a form of antibiotic 2,000 years before a scientist officially discovered it and won a Nobel Prize. The theory behind it was wrong. The result was exactly right. Different ancient cultures found their own ways to heal the body, often with no contact with each other at all. In ancient Egypt, they became experts with plants and honey, building up huge lists of remedies and using honey and garlic in ways that genuinely fought infection. Broken bones were handled well across many cultures because this is simple to observe. Keep a broken limb still and supported and it heals on its own. Egyptian mummies show clear signs of bones that were set with splints. Ancient Greek texts describe how to manage fractures in careful detail. The Romans became the best in the ancient world at treating injuries, mainly because they needed to keep their soldiers alive. The Roman army had trained medics, field hospitals, and surgeons who specialized in pulling out arrows and spear points, cleaning wounds, and dealing with the infections that followed. Their trauma care was so good that their methods stayed the standard for over 1,000 years after their empire fell. And in China, healers used a plant called sweet wormwood to treat fever for around 2,000 years. Much later, scientists studied that exact plant and pulled from it one of the most effective malaria treatments in the world today. Across all these places, cultures that had never met each other kept doing the same basic thing: watch the body closely, test what helps, keep what works, and pass it on. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. For all their cleverness, ancient humans still lost people constantly to things we barely worry about today. Childbirth was one of the most dangerous things a person could go through. Before modern medicine, a real share of women died giving birth, and since many women gave birth several times in their lives, the risk added up heavily over a lifetime. Children had it even harder. In many ancient societies, about half of all children born did not live to see their 5th birthday. Not because people did not care, and not because they were not trying, but because infections, hunger, and diseases that are easily treated today were simply a normal part of childhood. And when a serious infection spread into the blood, there was essentially nothing anyone could do. It killed quickly, and it killed almost everyone it touched. Even today, with antibiotics and hospitals, that kind of infection still kills people. Without any of those tools, it was almost always the end. In those moments, all ancient humans could really offer was care, keep the person warm, give them water, ease their pain with herbs, stay with them and not abandon them. And sometimes, given that comfort and support, the body fought the sickness off on its own. The human body is remarkably tough when given even half a chance. So why does any of this matter now? Because a surprising amount of modern medicine came directly from this ancient plant knowledge. A large share of the medicines we use today come from plants or are modern versions of chemicals first found in plants. Aspirin came from willow bark, morphine came from the opium poppy, a major malaria medicine, quinine, came from tree bark, used by indigenous people in South America long before Europeans wrote it down. Another malaria treatment came from that Chinese sweet wormwood plant. A heart medicine came from the foxglove plant, used by village healers for heart problems long before doctors formalized it. Even some powerful cancer medicines came from a tree and from a flower used in traditional healing. So when people dismiss ancient medicine as just superstition, they miss something important. Modern medicine is standing directly on its shoulders. Much of what we use today started as knowledge gathered slowly, one careful observation at a time, over tens of thousands of years. So ancient humans survived before medicine because, in a very real way, they invented it. One painful experiment at a time, one discovery passed down to one apprentice, then to the next. One wound treated with honey because someone long ago noticed honey helped. One fever eased with willow bark because that knowledge somehow traveled across thousands of years to reach the person who needed it. The chain was never broken. It runs from a Neanderthal chewing a bitter plant in a cave to an Egyptian healer pressing honey onto a wound, to a Roman surgeon pulling an arrow from a soldier, all the way to a scientist today testing a plant a community has trusted for centuries. It is all the same thing, the same effort, the same simple goal. Understand the body, keep it alive, pass on what works. So if the pill you took this morning made you feel even a little better, good. You are standing at the end of a very long line of people who are trying to solve the exact same problem you had. They just had to figure it out the hard way first so that you would not have to.